Welcome back. This is Susheta Sengupta Roy, and I'm from Swami Vivekananda Institute of Modern Science, Department of Media Science. And Swami Vivekananda College is affiliated to the Macau, the Maulana Abul Kalam Azad University of Technology, and approved by AICTE. Now, today we are going to deal with a section which is sedition under IPC, which is the Indian Penal Code. Now, IPC, it's a very new word for people who are not related to law, but then people who are related to law, for them, penal code is basically the code of punishments. So let's understand before we go to the sedition part, let's start with what exactly is IPC, because like my intention, this is a tutorial video, and my like this will be basically seen by my students, and maybe from students from other places or wherever you are, but ultimately students. So I prefer to be, it should be clear, and the concept should be very clear. So before we get to sedition, we'll surely touch a bit of Indian penal code, so that for you the concept is easier and clear. Now, IPC, the Indian Penal Code, which is also known as the Bharatiya Dand Samhita. So, Dand is like punishment. The main criminal code of India, drafted in 1860 and came in force in 1862. Suggestions derived from England law and the French Penal Code, amended several times, adopted by Pakistan, Bangladesh, Burma, Sri Lanka, Brunei, Malaysia, and Singapore. Well, before we get to the depth of it, now let us understand, like, where did this penal code come in from? So at that point of time, when it's a small thing to understand, it's like 1860. So it was before our independence. At that point of time, we were under the British rule. So a lot of our base of law or the basic codes are basically derived from the British codifications. And not only we, even all these smaller countries which were basically which formed at that point of time or before that. So like, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Burma, Sri Lanka, Brunei, Malaysia, Singapore, they have derived their codes from the basic code, which is basically the codes from England. So now we'll get to the next part of it. Now, offenses covered under IPC. What does IPC cover? If it is dandaniti or the punishments, so what does it cover? So large type of offenses are covered under IPC, ranging from general offenses to abetment to conspiracy to offenses against any government servants, offenses against the state fall under section 120 to 130. Any one or anything that plans to go against the state shall be punished under section 124A of sedition. So now, penal code, it is, I said, it's punishments. So what will be punished? Let us understand that whatever is wrong, whenever things are, when somebody does anything which is crime, that person has to be punished. So now, when we are talking about crime against the state or state in terms of law, for us, state means our country. So if I'm talking about India, if I'm talking about Indian Penal Code, I am talking about India as a whole. So anybody who conspires or does anything against India will be covered under, the punishment will be covered under 100 and under section 124A of, which is called the sedition. Now, what is section 124A? So 134A sedition, whoever by words, either by spoken or written or by signs or by visible representation or otherwise, brings or attempts to bring into hatred or contempt or excites or attempts to excite disaffection towards the government established by law in India shall be punished with imprisonment of life imprisonment, that is 14 years, to which fine may be added, or with imprisonment which may extend to 3 years, or which fine may be added, or with or without fine. Now, from 3 years to life imprisonment, it depends on the quantity or the quantum of crime done against the country, against India. Suppose somebody says a simple, some words unknowingly against our country. So maybe that person will be punished for 3 years. But somebody like terrorism, or somebody like, Indian secrets, Indian defense secrets, or any specifically any government documentations being sent to other country, which by for which or by which are the borders of our country or the safety of our country will be compromised. So in that case, obviously, fine, the person's whole property will be confiscated, and the person will be absolutely behind the bars for life. Till his death, he'll be behind the bars, nothing doing there. It is not 14 years, not 20 years. He will be imprisonment for life till he's living. So it depends, the punishment depends on the quantum of crime he does against the state, and intentionally or unintentionally, knowingly or unknowingly. So these total things are explained under section 124A of the Indian Penal Code. Now, what is explanation? So, explanation 1. So, the expression disaffection includes disloyalty and all feelings of enmity, which is like, that is the explanation 1. Explanation 2 says comments expressing disapprobation of the measures of the government with a view to obtain their alteration by lawful means without exciting or attempting to excite hatred, contempt, or disaffection. That's the explanation 2. Now, a lot of times the word contempt comes into it. Now, for to understand what contempt is, you should really go through the contempt of court. You can find the tutorial video about contempt of court in my gallery. You can find this contempt of court. Please go through the contempt of court. For this that will make it easier for you to understand this word contempt when we are talking about sedition part. Now, explanation 3. So, comments expressing disapprobation of the administrative of or other action of the government without exciting or attempting to excite hatred, contempt, or disaffection do not constitute an offense under this section. So, if somebody has, when I said like knowingly or unknowingly did something, but that does not excite hatred, does not contempt, does not create any disaffection, that will not be taken as sedition. Now, let's understand it as a layman's word, like anybody who can understand, who is not a lawyer, who doesn't understand what law is. And basically, to know your rights, one does not need to be a lawyer. You don't need to go to a lawyer to know your rights. And as far as sedition is concerned, we should know that how much our country is protected from people who talk nonsense or who does things against our country. We all love our country. So in a layman's term, Section 124A of the IPC, the Indian Penal Code, simply announces that spreading sedition and disaffection in a crime. What is sedition? Incitement of discontent or rebellion against the government, going against the government. Number 2, any action, especially in speech or writing, promoting such discontent or rebellion. 3, anarchic, rebellious disorder. Anything which is rebellious or disorder against the country. So terrorism is obviously a big part of it. And yeah, we all know it's punishable, badly punishable. Now, how sedition crept into our constitution. So introduced to limit the fundamental rights of freedom of speech. Now, to know about freedom of speech, we have another tutorial. Please go through the gallery. There's freedom of speech. I have given a small tutorial on freedom of speech also. Freedom of speech says that we have the freedom to speak what we want, but we cannot speak anything against our country. So Nehru received a lot of flack for compromising the right to freedom of speech and opinion. Now, Ramesh Thapar case prompted Nehru is immediately make amends in the proposed draft. So he changed it because it was compromised. So the second case was of organizer, the RSS mouthpiece. So Nehru government had to amend both the articles 124A and 19 subsection 92. So it's basically subsection 2. Now, let's understand how the sedition came in. We'll talk about an age-old case of 1908. Lokmanya Tilak. We all know about Lokmanya Tilak, Bal Gangadhar Tilak faced this during the repressive British regime. As the editor of Kesari, Tilak on May 12, 1908, titled his editorial The Misfortune of the Country, castigating the ruthless bureaucracy, that the British police slapped sedition charges against Tilak under Section 124A of the Indian Penal Code. So he was arrested on May 25th, 1908, convicted by jury trial on July 17, 1908, and sentenced to 6 years of imprisonment in case popularly known as second sedition case. Now, why? Because at the British rule, if no, no, the rulers are the British, and if somebody is naming its a newspaper on a representation as the misfortune of the country, that means the country is going through a bad phase due to their rule. So that is basically their like Lokmanya Tilak or Bal Gangadhar Tilak went against the rule of the British, so he went under the case of sedition. This is a very age-old case study. We'll go to the next case, Mahatma Gandhi. Now, at the time, Gandhi was being tried for writing 3 articles in his newspaper, Young India. We all know about Young India newspaper by Mahatma Gandhi. So, in which he sharply, criticized the government's repressive measures to suppress the people's struggle. So, in mounting his defense in the 1922 trial, Gandhi struck at the very foundation of his law. One commentator writes, the trial was endowed with classic grandeur developed with the Socratic passion for truth emanating from Gandhi's lips. So, Gandhi pleaded guilty to the charge of sedition and spreading disaffection. Obviously, disaffection against the British rule at that point of time. Now, we'll get to a modern case. Previously, we were talking about before independence, not a modern case. The Samajwadi Party president lashed out against a TV news channel for airing the one-sided footage and not showing Mr. Khan's regrets over his reported remark. So, Mr. Singh accused the news channel of irresponsible reporting. The Samajwadi Party chief told reporters here that people were losing faith in the section of the electronic media, and if the trend continued, there would be complete loss of faith and incredibility in the news channel. Describing the sedition charge is as serious, Mr. Singh urged the court not to rely on the news channels. But we do, because news channels are supposed to be the mouthpiece of the society. The journalists should be more responsible when they are putting up news. It should be put in such a way. Now, so section 124A was repealed. Growing pressure to repeal the section following Binayak Sen's life imprisonment, there has been a lot of pressure on the government to repeal the section 124A. Also requires a mass-based nationwide civil liberties movement. So it has to be decided when to apply this section. So that is all about the sedition, section 124A of Indian Penal Code. So thank you for now, and I'll be back with another tutorial on law. So before that, as per the freedom of speech and the contempt of court, even you can get this the press law in my other tutorial videos. So this section will be, when you'll be more clear about this section. Thank you.